Julia, obviously this is important. The mission is important. How exactly is this partnership going to work?
Thank you, Emily. Well, this year is an extraordinary time for the voting population. And while, COVID has virtually made in-person gatherings cease, online gathering is just growing tremendously. So we've seen 20x increase on our platform of online events. And that means that millions of people are coming to the platform to connect with one another. Our goal is to really lean into civic engagement and create a positive change by helping to make it's so easy to register to vote. So we've partnered with Headcount, which is an organization that has helped over 600,000 young people register to vote at live events. And we've taken their method online. So effectively, our creators can set an option in their event to allow people to just easily hit add to cart and be able to go through a registration flow to vote. And that is going to make it much easier for people to get educated and to make sure that their voice gets heard this election season.
Now, obviously, we're in the middle of a social, economic, and health crisis as we move towards this election. I'm curious how that's translated into activity on your platform. Are you seeing a rise in more sort of activism-related events?
Well, we have seen a rise of activism-related events throughout this entire year. I think that really the goal is to help voices that have been unheard be heard. And Eventbrite is that platform. So we're enabling our creators to use the platform for things that they'd be doing otherwise, being able to elevate voices, being able to educate people, being able to activate the action that needs to happen in our country. And I think that as we see communities come together online, there's been a tremendous rise in terms of using your voice to create positive change. So if you go to the Eventbrite homepage, you'll see thousands of social justice and racial equity education events. And that's not by accident. Our community has come together to really give this moment in time the significance that it deserves. And we're seeing the activity on Eventbrite just continue to grow and swell. And that's really something to be optimistic about and to be hopeful about.
Now, obviously, we've talked about how the in-person event business has been, at least it's certainly on pause, and it may be forever different. Are you seeing in-person events coming back at all, even as we come out of this, or will a vastly larger percentage of events be virtual over the longer term?
Well, the live events business has never been more directly impacted in our generation. Certainly, you have to go way, way back to find a time where there's been such great disruption of something that is an innate human need, gathering together in real life. What we're seeing, though, is with the advent of technology and the benefit of us being in this age of innovation, people are finding each other online. So 85% of consumers who are attending online events knew the creator prior to COVID. So they're just finding them online. And creators are seeing the consumer behavior shift of the adoption of these online formats, and they're hosting more frequent live events. Now, I can't predict the future perfectly, but I can tell you what we're seeing now. Instead of large format in-person gatherings, we're seeing people pivot to more niche focused events online. So instead of a big music festival, for instance, we're seeing fan-fueled listening jams online, or living room concerts. Instead of, a big business conference, we're seeing more hyper local meetups happening. And as it becomes more safe for us to gather in person, we believe that we'll see more small format, hyper local gatherings. People won't be crossing borders or traveling a far distance on airplanes, for instance, but they will be driving to see and connect with their communities. I think a fundamental question for the live events economy is really, when are we going to get back to those big scaled en masse events? And that's really not the problem we're trying to solve at Eventbrite. Our core market is about these small to medium size events, and we can scale up to hundreds of thousands of people in online gatherings.
Now, I know that gender equity is something that you're really passionate about, and we have sympathized as moms, as parents who work with schools not reopening in the fall. I wonder how you're thinking about this. The case has been made that this is much harder on parents, certainly, and working parents. How are you thinking about that, and how are you helping your employees navigate that with no end in sight to the sort of status quo?
Well, certainly in the U.S., we're faced with one disappointment after another. It seems in terms of the outlook on reopening schools, and I think as we look forward, we have to prepare for the worst. So, as an employer of over 600 people around the world, where we largely have gender equity, it's really imperative for us to think about this as a family problem, and even more so as a dependent care problem. So we're looking for ways to partner with other organizations to come up with creative solutions. We're starting to see communities come together to form pods for their kids to be educated together in a smaller environment, online if they're doing distance learning. And I think that especially for those children who are under school age, this is a real issue for everybody, and we're unified in the impact. My focus has really been on solutions that can help to drive us through this era in time without particularly women taking decades off the advancement that we've made in gender equity, which I know something you care deeply about.